So looking back at over 20 years in business, what is one thing that you point to that you would say, man, this is why we've made it this long. This is what has made us successful?
I won't quit. I mean, that's really it. And to anybody listening in their 20s, just don't quit. If I stayed at the CPA firm, I would have been partner. It was one of the reasons I left. I didn't want to be partner. I felt like the other side of the fence was greener pastures. If I had stayed at that company, I would have eventually been on executive staff. And now that I'm in my business, I just keep working the problem. I don't give up. I don't quit. And also being in business this long, and it doesn't really take that long to figure it out when you're in business. Your circumstances are going to change on you frequently, yearly. I always tell people running a business is like a jigsaw puzzle on the kitchen table, except somebody sneaks in the middle of the night and they take a part of the puzzle that you had already done and they cut the pieces into different shapes. And you've got to figure out, you thought you had that taken care of, and now you got to figure out how to put it all back together again. Because the rules of business and your partners change regularly. And I don't know if you've figured this out, Scott, but you are the consistency. I'm the consistency. My customers have known me longer than anybody at Sage. And that's because the folks at Sage have rotated through. And the people that they've had experience with are gone. But we've been the consistency. We've been the glue that gets them from one season into another or one thing into another. So just not giving up. I don't know how to describe that very well. I've got a prospective customer right now who's worried about my age. I'm worried that you're not going to be around. And I'm like, well, what else am I going to do? If my business goes out of business, I'm still going to be here. And I'm still going to be interested in accounting information flow and solving problems with software as a service. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the other things I love to do, I'm going to continue to do this. So just not quitting, not giving up. I think that's why I made it the first year and kind of kept going.
Yeah.
It was like something kicked in. It was like, okay, I can do better than that. I can make this work.
You talked about how, had you stayed in public accounting, you could see a clear path to being on the executive team and being a partner. I think for a lot of people, the ambition is to get to the top. But I think it's so important that you had the self-awareness back then to say, I know I can get to the top. That's not where I want to be. That's not the ladder that I want to climb. Do you ever think back like how different your life would be if you had stayed?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think everybody does. It's why those shows like Ordinary Joe are fascinating, or what would have it been like had I made a different decision? But again, when people ask you, what would you do differently? I don't know that I would do anything differently because it created who I am today. And if I did something differently, I would be a different person. From a financial standpoint, I'd probably have more money and I'd probably be deeper in debt. I've been financially free for 15 years now. I'm not going back.
Why do you say you would have more money, but you would be
deeper in debt?
Yeah.
Oh, because I would have tried to keep up with my peer group. I would have elevated my housing. I would have elevated my circumstance. I would have financed more. It was one of the few places that took a break every day. Like all the partners and all the staff would break together once a day or twice a day, actually. And people would talk about what they were doing. And I still know some of these guys. I'd probably, have a couple of VRBOs and, some other things going on. And I kind of went the other way. I kind of just simplified everything. I didn't do other more complex financial investments. And of course, there's, I think every American, if they have the idea, they should start their own business. Because there's just so many benefits to being a business owner that you just don't get when you're an employee and just somebody's, paying you a W-2. It's not for everybody. It's not. And there are times when I was like, some days when I wish I was an employee today because I would just quit.
Mm-hmm.
I would just quit and go find a job somewhere else. But
I've never thought that.
Really?
No. That was a lie.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a marriage. You just can't walk away from your responsibility. You got to show up for it every day. and you can't be down. You've got to be on. Some days you're like, okay, where do I find it? I got to find it. Here's all the pieces of the puzzle. Where do I find it? And where's my blue sky? Oh, here it is. And focus on the blue sky and forget about the storm and just focus on that and get through it. And then you look up and you're like, I got through 2 stock market crashes, 9/11, COVID. I think it's just determination.
So you've already said that everybody should figure out what the idea is and go start their business. For the people that have the idea and have made the decision, what advice would you give to somebody that's starting a business today?
So the best advice that friends gave me before I started the business was, number 1, learn how to live without money. I didn't understand it when I heard it either. I was like, what? Yeah, you have to have money. You've got to pay the rent, got to pay. But, like I said, I figured out a way to draw my net pay from savings, right, for a period of time. What that really means is you need to be in a position where you're not having to make business decisions because you personally need money. That's where small business owners get into trouble. That's when they start borrowing against their employees or borrowing against the IRS, or they just overspend and run out of money. And the example that this friend used was he had some business property that he leased, and one of the places was a restaurant. And he said, it was a great restaurant. It was a great concept. But he closed the doors after 4 months because he ran out of money. And it was like 4 months in the restaurant, but people don't even know you're there yet. So number 1, how are you going to stay? You need staying power. How can you measure that staying power? That's what learn how to live without money means. Or you've got to be able to master that part of your life, right? You don't have to have a lot of money. And like I said, I started my business with what it would take to buy probably a very nice used Suburban. It doesn't have to be a lot. It might based on your business. If restaurants take a lot of money. If you're an equipment rental business, it takes millions to get going. So whatever it is, how are you going to have the staying power to not have to make decisions because your cash balance is not what you think it would be? That's number 1. Number 2 is you have to invest in it. The reason I'm not a professional photographer today is I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't buck up the money to get lights like you have here, the medium format cameras that were required in the day, the facility to hang the paper, all these things that you have here. I was in college and I wasn't willing to spend thousands of dollars of initial investment to do it. So you have to invest. And the third is, I'll take the bankers. Don't plant radishes. So when I asked him what he meant by that, what are you talking about? I need to know how to plant radishes. He goes, well, I might be planting this really nice crop, but I know I can have radishes in so many weeks. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? If I don't focus on my dream and my vision, what he wanted me to say was that I would do public accounting on the side, that I would do tax returns. That was all that was standing between me and that loan, was me saying that I was willing to do public accounting, tax returns, bookkeeping, whatever. I said, if I don't pursue this dream to help small businesses with software, I'll never get there. I will become what I do. And therefore, I need to do what I want to become. And just go for it and do it. If you think it through financially, it might turn into a spend of money, right? But it was an experience. And if you fail, you fail. And you're employable. The biggest lie in the world is that if I give up this job, I won't be able to find another one. That's just the biggest lie there is. If you don't believe me, go into any business right now. They need people. A lot of the people working in the business don't care if they're there or not. So don't ever think you're not of value, that you're not going to be able to recapture that or get it someplace else. It's just a lie. In the next lifetime, maybe I can tell you how to get out of a business once you get into one. I don't know how to do that right now. That's the cost of success, is now I have people dependent on me and customers dependent on me. And I just can't get mad and quit tomorrow morning.
Awesome.